And now it's officially June. It's June 1st today, so this starts my June reading vlog. Little did I know that that last reading vlog I did was actually going to be the end of my May reading. I have actually been listening to the audiobook of Little Nothing for over a month. I started it right at the end of April. I finished this today. It's the story kind of dual told by this woman and this guy. So in the beginning of the book we're introduced to Pavla, and she's our female narrator, and then later on we are introduced to Danilo, who is our male narrator. And it's sort of about how their paths continually cross, and it's sort of a love story, but it's also magical realism. So there's a human that turns into a wolf, there's circusy stuff, there's a lot going on in this, and I have to be honest that I didn't follow all of it, and I don't think that audiobook is the best choice for this. I think that the narrator was fantastic, did a great job with it, but I think probably it would be easier to navigate and to really keep up when you're actually reading the physical book. So I think maybe that hampered my reading of this, but overall I thought the writing was really good, but I just thought the story was a little too weird for my taste. It was definitely fantastical, magical realism. If that's something you like, then go right ahead. If you are not a fan of coarse language, this has a lot of swearing and graphic depictions of a lot of different things that might be uncomfortable for some people. Didn't bother me, but yes, so not my favorite, but it was alright. So I just finished Career of Evil. I've been listening to this on my commute to and from work, and whenever I've been in my car, I had the CDs out from the library, and then it's the weekend, so I was either gonna have to wait until Monday to listen to the rest of this or bring it in the house and put it in the DVD player. I did the latter because I was only 2 discs from the end, so I just had to. So I've spent the last couple of hours listening to this at home, and this book is creepy as hell. This is the 3rd book in the Cormoran Strike series, and in this one, Robin gets sent a severed leg in the mail, and it goes on this kind of unraveling case of someone who clearly seems to have it out for Strike and for trying to ruin Strike. And Strike has identified 3 men in his past that he thinks would do something like this and who also would mean him harm. And so obviously the police are not fully investigating this correctly, and so Strike and Robin get involved, and they're more involved than they know. I will continually say, what in the world kind of twisted mind does J.K. Rowling have? This was vulgar, terrifying, and made my stomach turn at times. This has definitely got triggers for rape and for serial killers. I am really terrified of all things that have to do with serial killers, nightmares, all of that. I didn't realize, I don't think that that's what this one was going to be about. I was always going to read it, but I probably wouldn't have listened to it on the way home to an empty house if I had known that. So yeah, there are parts of this where you get the perspective of the actual serial killer. Super, super creepy, and kind of couldn't handle it. Borderline could not handle it. I didn't come anywhere near guessing this one, and part of me does not know how you could, but yes, it was very well laid out and suspenseful and exciting and terrifying all at once. And yes, Robin is a badass. That is pretty much how I feel about this book, is Robin is a badass. I finished A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. It was as good as everyone says it is. I absolutely loved this. It is a wonderful character-focused book. So there's a plot. The whole time we're kind of going towards this inevitable ending, basically where they're going to a small angry planet, and it's a long haul space journey, and throughout the way we just learn about these amazing characters who all have such just amazing, fully developed personalities. I keep saying amazing. And it's told in these different chapters that feel like episodes to me. So it's like, this feels like it could very much be a TV show, because each chapter feels like a new episode of the show kind of thing. It's like an episode of the book where we're in a different place and there's a different topic that's addressed, or we learn something new about a different character. I just think it's really well done, and I fell in love with the characters and I wanted more. I know that there are 2 more books in this series. So there's A Close and Common Orbit that follows 2 peripheral characters. So I'm definitely going to pick that up. Although the characters it follows are not the ones that I would like to have another story about. But I am interested because Becky Chambers is an amazing writer. So yes, I am very, very, very much looking forward to reading more of her books. Good morning. So I finished a book yesterday at work, and that was Behind the Throne by K.B. Wagers. This was one of the books that I started reading in my try-chapter tag, and I'm so glad I did, because this is amazing. Like, seriously awesome. The premise is basically a runaway princess turned gun runner is tracked down and dragged back to her home planet because it is in disarray. Her family members have been killed, and she has to resume her right as heir to the throne. And it's all this political intrigue and crazy plotting, and she is a badass. And I was just laughing through the whole thing because she's just such a badass. And yes, I immediately went online and ordered the second one, / went on my library's requests and requested the second audiobook on Overdrive, and it's already come in. I really, really, really like this. So I finished The Taming of the Shrew by William Shakespeare. I was listening to this, a full cast version. I really like the full cast versions. As for this particular Shakespeare play, not the biggest fan. I'm gonna be honest. I really love the movie 10 Things I Hate About You. It's so sweet and fun, and by the way, just the epitome of the 90s as well. But it's definitely different. I mean, I know it's retellings are always different, but to me, this book is like, or this play, it's just a bunch of like misogynist assholes fighting over a woman, and then using and basically breaking the spirit of one woman to get to another, and then holding up the fact that they turned this really like self-aware woman who's really strong and didn't need somebody else to tell her what to do, turned her into this submissive like ragdoll basically, and they're holding that up as that's how a woman should be. And it kind of made me sick to my stomach, honestly. Like, throughout the whole thing, it's played really well, and so I don't know, I just found this to be a little upsetting. So yeah. So I just finished June, which I was buddy reading with Olive, and it was definitely not my favorite historical fiction. It's basically about 2 storylines, one in 2015, one in 1955, and kind of how the 2015 is the granddaughter of the woman who's like, well, she's kind of the main focus of the 1955 storyline. And we basically find out that this movie star, Jack Montgomery, has left all his money to this person that is essentially unknown to his family. And they're trying to figure out if, in fact, they are related. And so we follow them trying to figure out whether or not Jack and June, who's the grandmother of Cassie, the one who the money is left to, them trying to figure out if, in fact, they had a child, and if they can be tied to each other at all. And then in 1955, we follow Lindy, who's like the best friend of June, and the story of how Jack and June met. And while at first, like the beginning of it I really enjoyed and I was getting into it, it just became sloppier and sloppier writing. And it was one of those books that it was like, you have decided you're going to write a book in 2000 set in 1955. Yet there were so many things that were kind of inconsistent with the 50s. There's a particular twist in here that's kind of a spoiler, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But basically, it was one of those things that was like, when you go back and look at the laws at that time, it's something that probably would not have held or happened, and it just was kind of baffling. There were too many twists. On the back, it talks about someone being murdered and blackmail. That doesn't happen until almost the very end of the book, and so I don't understand why it's talked about on the back. Because the whole time I was like, who gets murdered? And just like trying to figure that out. And also both romances, the romance between Jack and June and the romance between Cassie and this other character Nick, are just flat and too quick and just don't make sense. And it was sloppy, and I just think that she tried to put too much diversity in it, because there are LGBTQ, there are all kinds of things in here, and it just felt like she tried to do too much and didn't do any of them very well. And I just got to the point where I wanted the book to be over. I just wanted to know what the final twist was going to be and be done with it. And yeah, definitely not something I would super recommend. I finished Vinegar Girl by Ann Tyler. It is the second book in the Hogarth Shakespeare edition retellings that I have read. I did listen to this one on audiobook as well, and I really like the narrator. The writing style of this book is fantastic. I liked it as well. I didn't love this book. I ended up, I think, giving it 3 stars. I think it's mostly, I'm not a fan of the original play, and the adaptions just sort of run along that same line. I feel like every adaptation of this that I've now seen or read or heard of is just so wildly different, because I felt like really the only thing that ties this to the original play, some of the names, and then the whole part where she is supposed to be a shrew, she's supposed to be mean, and then she gets married off for some reason other than love. That's really the only things that I feel like tie this to the original play, because I mean, there was nothing about her, like nothing as far as she had to get married or she had to date before her sister could. It was basically just like she was sort of serving as a mother figure to her sister, and her sister was this like irresponsible, dippy girl, and she, like, okay, she was kind of mean and nasty, but she was mean and nasty in not an inappropriate way. Like in the original play, I feel like Katerina is horrible and a nasty human being, whereas Catherine in this book is just like, I kind of identified with her. She's kind of a no-nonsense person. She doesn't really care about, you know, social chit-chat and things like that, and she's just very blunt and honest, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And she doesn't necessarily like change that along the way, but I don't know, it was very strange. I just didn't think that this was all that well done as a retelling of Taming of the Shrew, and really just probably not gonna be a book that I remember very well. I finished this, and holy crap, this is one of the best series I've read in a very long time. The last sentence of this book absolutely gave me chills up my spine. It is so good, and I have no idea how I'm gonna wait to November for the next book. That is so far away. It's so good. The main character, Haley, is just an absolute badass of a character. She is probably gonna be one of my all-time favorite book characters ever, and from start to finish, this book is entertaining, exciting. really well developed as far as characters and world building and politics, and it's just so good. Okay, so I rage about this book. So I am officially DNFing it at about the 143 page mark because this is the most boring brick of a book. It is supposed to be about these scientists who are participating in this experiment where they're locked in a biodome for 2 years, and they're trying to see, basically it's a closed ecosystem simulation of life on another planet, like creating an ecosystem on another planet. It is so boring. It is like the most boring soap opera I've ever had to experience. I've been listening to the audiobook and the characters are terrible. And I'm not even one who needs likable characters. Ramsey is disgusting, slimy, disgusting, and I'm just waiting for him to sexually assault someone, basically. All he ever talks about is sex with all the women. That's all he talks about, even though at this point he's only had said sex with one of them. I just want to throw this across the room. They're also introducing this element of a play, and I don't know why a scientific experiment in a biodome needs a play. Like, it seems like the weirdest plot point in the world, and it's just, I do not recommend this book. I just think it's boring. Boring, boring, boring. Our cats are chasing something that might be a rabbit, might be a mouse, might be a toad, but they're terrible at this. Terrible. That's Einstein, the one that's just trotting along behind Ringleader like he's helping, but he's really not helping. Oh, it must have gone over the fence. I mean, under the fence. And they're gone. I finished The Art of Hearing Heartbeats, which is this gorgeous book that I picked up at Parnassus about a month ago, something like that. This was really good. So it is really beautifully and lyrically written, and it's basically the story of this girl whose father just up and leaves one day, and 2 years later her mom gives her this stuff of his that has a letter with an address on it in Burma where her father was born, and so she goes on this kind of adventure to see where he came from. This wasn't what I was expecting. I expected it to be more kind of like her investigating things and finding out little pieces here and there. Instead, she meets up with this old man who then starts telling her her father's story from beginning to the point when he left for New York. And it, at first, because there's no like, in a lot of books it'll say like the year and the date, or the year and the month. It doesn't do that in here. It just skips from present day to the story. And at first I was like, wait, what? Who are these people? But I figured it out pretty quickly, and I just thought the way that the story was told was so beautiful, and it is a gorgeous love story. It has some pretty wonderful, diverse characters with physical disabilities, and yeah, just absolutely lovely. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars, and I definitely am going to be thinking about this one for a while. It was very, very good, and I would definitely recommend it. Well, I didn't finish any more books in June, so we're going to wrap it up here. And I would love to hear what you read in the month of June in the comments down below. And yeah, I'll let you know what I read in July.